Thank you all for joining Lumens Redefining Speaker Tracking with CamConnect today. We greatly appreciate your participation in this event. Today we have Mr. Chester Lee, VP of Sales for the Americas, and Mr. Rick Puleo on our webinar today. I'd now like to pass the presentation on to Mr. Chester Lee.
Thanks a lot, Helen. Appreciate that. I'd like to thank you all for coming and joining us this morning or afternoon, depending where you guys might be today. We've talked about CamConnect Pro quite a number of different webinars. We want to go over it briefly on what it is, but I kind of want to talk about more of the feature sets as we have made multiple improvements over the years on this product. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Once again, my name is Chester Lee. I am with Lumens. In addition to that, we have Rick as well, our sales engineer. So we're going to talk about a little bit about Lumens and what value we add to what you guys can do for your business. In addition to that, we'll do a quick CamConnect overview of it, but we're really going to jump in and talk about some of the key feature sets that we've added over the last few months, specifically talking about the zone mode, the virtual keyboard, and a few other important improvements that we've had on there. So I'm going to jump into it. So just a quick background on Lumens. Lumens, we've been in business for about 25 years. Our organization does focus on three core technologies on there. One is connectivity via streaming protocols of RTSP, RTMP on there, NDI, and then our latest partnership with Dante. So we've launched out one of the first Dante-based cameras, and also Dante-based decoders and NDI encoders and decoders. The second thing that we focus on is our optical strength on there. And then our third and probably most important is the digital image processing. So we want to talk about color accuracy and clarity. It supports a wide dynamic range on there. The Lumens team that will support you guys out in the field on there for the US market here, we have Brandon based in the West Coast, Eddie Boyette in the Northeast region, and then Andrew Malassi in the Southeast region. As noted before, you guys can reach out, take a look what state you're in, go ahead and reach out to your regional manager that supports that area, or just reach out directly to me and we'll help you get facilitated with anything that you might need. In addition to that, Rick Puleo is based in the state of Washington. Please feel free to reach out, set up a meeting, set up a schedule for some training, set up for installations or some pre-sales or post-sales support. So Lumens Integration, we are a Taiwanese headquartered company, and our production facility is based in Taiwan. So the majority of our products are TAA and NDA compliant. And that really is talking about any product with technology built into it. We do have some products that are COO China, but those are typically our metal mounts. But the technology products that we actually have are actually built in Taiwan. In addition to that, Lumens has a 5-year warranty on our products. So what does that mean for you? You can buy a product today, 4 years down the line, 10 months, 4 years, 10 months down the line, something happens, it becomes defective. Go ahead and jump onto our online portal, submit your RMA request, and we'll do an advanced replacement via UPS ground. So pretty simple, nothing too complex on there. We'll get it done. You'll get an automatic notification, RMA information, and you're set to go. And we'll go ahead and replace it with the same camera, assuming it still has not become end of life. If it's become end of life, we'll go ahead and replace that with the very like model to that solution. In addition for that, for our integrators and also for our end user there, we do have a very simplified registration program. All it takes is 1 unit to register your opportunity with Lumens. We'll typically have a 24-hour turnaround time, and usually we're faster than that, about 4 to 8 hours, but we'll say 24-hour turnaround time for your registration to be approved or reviewed and approved. If there are issues or maybe it's already been registered with another partner, we'll let you know within 24 hours of that piece. The registration program will give you up to between 10 to 20% in savings on our products. As we talk about our solutions and talk about what it can do for you, or we talk about it's most important to get the product to be tested by you. So we have a very simplified 30-day demo unit program. So we'll send over a form to you. Go ahead and fill that out, send it back to us. There's no cost to you. We'll pay for the shipping out to you guys. And in the box of the demo unit, you'll have actually a return label. So just go ahead and send it on back to us when you're done on that. If you decide that you want to purchase the demo unit, we do have that option to do that as well. You'll receive that at some demo pricing. That's aggressive pricing for 1 unit per model on there. So as we go in, let's go into the CamConnect overview here of what we have here. So the CamConnect Pro, it's an AI speaker tracking solution on there. So really, as meeting rooms have evolved, it's not your basic room, but we want to make sure that we're promoting meeting equity so that every individual is heard and seen in your meeting. Our device will support up to 4 Lumens cameras, and we'll also partner with specific microphone manufacturers, and we'll talk about those guys in just a few moments on there. So how does the CamConnect Pro work, right? So we work with set microphone partners. We'll take the audio data that's coming from that microphone, be it a ceiling mic, a table mic, a gooseneck mic, etc. We'll take that speaker data. We'll go ahead and communicate to the CamConnect Pro, and the CamConnect Pro will go ahead and communicate to the Lumens camera to any of those specific areas and regions that you decide upon. So it's a quite easy setup on there. So some of the mic partners that we are working with right now is Audio-Technica, Sennheiser, Shure, Nareva, and Yamaha. There's actually a 6th microphone partner that has just been certified on there, and that'll be coming on the next release, and that is the Televic gooseneck mics. That is the Discerno product numbers that is certified. So that'll be coming up on the next firmware update on there. So excited to have Televic as part of our partnerships. Depending on the microphone partners that you guys are using on there, you're going to have a variation on how many mics we support with the CamConnect. So depending on the solution, in Audio-Technica, the ceiling array mics will support up to 2 of their microphones in the solution. With Nareva, we've got one microphone support. Sennheiser, depending on the model, 1 or 2 microphones that we support. The Shure mics for a table or a ceiling, or the ceiling mics on there, it's 1 unit. But then if it's a digital conferencing systems, we actually support 125. For Yamaha, similar situation. We've got a couple of the ceiling mics array for the wireless mic 16, and their table array microphones will support up to 16 units on that solution on there. So for this, we're going to talk about some of the key feature sets that we've added. And that's in the recent firmwares that we did back in March, and the also one that we released in May. So we're talking about version 1.11.23 and 1.10.19, which is available for download at mylumens.com. So let's talk about zone mode, and this is a real exciting piece. So for those of you that were fortunate enough to attend InfoComm, we actually displayed zone mode in a demo room at InfoComm. What was unique about the setup is that we decided to open up one of the walls and not have it there, so that way we can get all the voice and sounds and noise coming from the aisles. We'll talk about that more in depth in a bit, but it was an exciting piece to have to show off zone mode's capability and its accuracy on there. So talking about the little intro video is overcoming speaker tracking. In the past, we've talked about setting things up via azimuth angles, which is a great way to set it up. But with zone mode capability, and we'll do a live demo in a few moments as well, it's a much more precise solution on there. In addition to that, we'll use 2D mapping with it. And we'll show also the configuration portion, and that is the setup. And in this version of the setup on zone mode, you'll see how it's much faster and much quicker to get done. And like I said before, much more accurate in that regards. Originally back on the zone mode, when we took a look at a ceiling mic, and let's just take this as an example of what we have here, right? So in this scenario, we'll divide the microphone up into 8 pieces of the pizza there. So we'll set it up via the azimuth angles, and you'll preset the cameras to whichever azimuth angle you set up on there. But there are things that have become difficult when you start working via azimuth angles that will not provide a true speaker tracking solution or give you some inaccuracies with that. One of the things that is probably the main issue is that if you have two speakers coming from the same general area, maybe sitting in two separate rows, for example, from here you'll have the speaker tracking and it'll hear the sound, but it may become difficult to actually, center on the individual who is speaking versus persons that it's maybe someone that might be in front or someone that might be in the back. So with this piece here, when we set up the new zone mode design, we'll show it a little bit more in depth. We can actually center on the individual from above versus having it just coming via the azimuth angle. We'll show that off here. So let's talk about a diagram, the setup that we have here. So in this situation, we have a ceiling mic centered in the middle of the room, and we have defined areas of speaker tracking. In this scenario, we have about 8 to 9 zones. We don't recommend more than about 10 zones because your typical ceiling mic has, and Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, somewhere between about 18 by 18, 15 by 15, or 820 by 20 area max coverage for your standard ceiling mic, somewhere in that area on there. Each room in an AV environment is always different, but we don't recommend it outside the 20 by 20 area. So you're talking about 9 to 10 max zones on that situation. So in the setup that you see here, you can have hotspots all throughout the area. And the beauty of having this setup here is you can actually control if the mic picks up the audio data from this region, it'll communicate with the CamConnect, and then your whatever camera you have preset for this location, it'll communicate for that camera to move over into that location. So it's a much easier setup and design. Rick will show you that in just a few moments, but I really want to highlight the simplicity of it and design of the room on there. In this situation, we've got a room that's set up as about a 25 by 25 foot room is what we've got set up on here. The one other thing that's kind of also important in thinking about zone mode and setup here is, let's talk about different environments. And in this environment, we have a training room that's set up in this environment. As you'll see, you'll have zones set up for each set of tables that you might have going on. And this will allow the camera to go into that area and then center on with the AI technology, center on the individual who's speaking during the training sessions on there. The current zone mode firmware is only set up right now for Yamaha, Sennheiser, and Audio-Technica. Those are the 3 manufacturers that firmware is set up. Very shortly, we're going to have Sennheiser coming along board, and that would be, Rick, correct me, I believe that's early Q3 that we're expecting to see that becoming launched. I think that's in the late July, early August firmware release. So we'll add that model to that. So thank you. We'll add that model to the next setup on there. So with that being said, Rick, I'm going to stop sharing real quick here. I want you to do a quick demo on the SEP and all the other good stuff about zone mode here. Give me a second. I'll stop sharing. And Rick, you've got the floor.
So a quick example is what you just saw is that I am speaking from this location right here, and the camera was recalled to this tighter preset shot of me. So I'm going to move just a few feet over here, slightly out of frame, and that's going to trigger a secondary camera from a different angle. So you can set up your zones this tightly, which I think is very beneficial. I'm going to move back over here, and of course the camera is going to cut back to me. So let's show you exactly how I set that up. And we hit share, and away we go. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the zone settings, and you're going to see a red indicator showing zone number 1. And if I was to step over to the right, you're going to see the red indicator that the microphone, in this case, an Audio-Technica 1061, and it's picking me up in zone number 2, and of course the camera switches over to it. Now the beauty of this is that this is how you can create your zones simply by activating audio in any location in your room, and then you can create a zone for that location. And creating a zone is as simple as drawing a square and up to, we strongly recommend about 8 zones per room. And then once you create your zones, depending on how you need them and how you require them, you could then apply that. And from that point, you can select your zone, select a camera for that zone, and apply a preset for that zone. We also have the option for a secondary camera as well if camera A is already in use in a different zone. I find this incredibly easy to use, incredibly easy to configure, and it doesn't require any extensive programming. Now, although our interface shows up to 128 zones, again, I'd like to strongly recommend you keep it down, keep your zones down. This helps manage the expectations of what happens inside of a meeting. Now, I'm going to disconnect from this microphone. I'm going to show that currently our Sennheiser, that we're currently supporting the Yamaha RMCG microphone, the Nareva HDL410, and the Sennheiser TC-C2 in TC-CM in coordinate modes, which I think is very effective. So I hope this was a good example of showing how easy it is to configure a zone, to create a zone, and to configure your room. How's that?
Excellent, Rick. Thank you. The transition was actually quite quick. What's the speed that you have in the transition of the cameras?
Oh, excellent, excellent selection. I'm currently selecting my cameras to trigger at 1/2 second, but my options are all the way down to 1/10 of a second, all the way up to 5 seconds. So you can easily reconfigure it if the cuts are too quickly or if they're too long. You can also adjust the audio trigger level so that you can adjust at what level does it actually trigger it. And if multiple people are speaking in the room, it generally goes to the loudest volume. The last thing I'd like to mention is that you could actually set up and configure a back to home time. If the room is silent, you can configure the camera, you can configure an individual camera that will be your home shot and a specific preset that you would like it to go to. Remember, each camera has up to 254 presets, so you have a lot of choices to go from.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Rick, for that demo. It's amazing how simplified it has become, just setting up the little square and setting up the zone for each individual area. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and if you want to stop sharing, I'm going to take it back over real quick here. Rick, I know this is one of your favorite things about the new feature, so I'll let you talk about this one here and talk about the virtual keyboard that we have added to this thing.
Certainly. So as the default setting for the CamConnect Pro is DHCP. When it comes out of the box, it's DHCP. However, a couple of things that I would like to note is that access to the internet is not required for the CamConnect Pro to function. And in most cases, you're going to want to configure your audio and your cameras in a dedicated closed AV network. And in most cases, that AV network is static IP. So having a virtual keyboard allows you to access the onboard user interface and with just a mouse, configure the IP address of the CamConnect Pro. It's on your network, and then you can continue the configuration with the web GUI from your laptop. So this really, in my mind, it really eases, it makes configuration a snap. I
No,
hope that makes sense.
it does. It's a great feature that I've had that we've added on that last revision on there. So cool deal. So we'll go to the final piece here. We'll talk about a few additional improvements that we've made over the last few months on there. And let's talk about these are the firmware revisions in version 1.10.19 on there for automatic reconnection for the microphones and IP cameras. Before, if you had network outages or network disruptions on there, the microphones had to be manually reconnect on there, retype that in, as well as the cameras. So in this situation now with the firmware update that we did, so now it's an automatic reconnect. The mics are up within just a few moments, assuming a steady network on there, and the cameras are restored usually in less than 60 seconds for the cameras to be restored back onto the network on there. So that's a great addition, less troublesome in that regards. The second thing, Rick, you hinted at this just a little while ago. With the new algorithms of the microphones on there, the microphone and the camera will work together to pick up based on where the mic is speaking and getting the loudest dB level coming from the individual speaker. So from there, when the mic is picking up, and you may be picking up in multiple areas on there, and depending on the setup, the camera will react to the microphone that has the loudest dB level. And then the third thing we want to talk about is the profile settings, and we'll get this in depth a little bit here because this, I think, is an important thing to understand. As the office space has become much not as simplified as before and more complex with multi-purpose rooms on there, you can design and set up the CamConnect to have 8 separate profiles. In this image that you see here, you've got a very large conference room. Even though you see 4 cameras that are highlighted, there's 4 other cameras that are not highlighted. What I want to just make sure we clarify with the CamConnect is that the CamConnect will support up to 4 cameras. So you can actually have it set up for this camera, it doesn't matter, but just remember that it only works with 4 cameras at this moment in time on there. So in this diagram in profile 1, we've got the 4 cameras set up in each individual corner of the room for the speaker tracking solution. Now, maybe perhaps in the large room, you can cut that room down to a smaller room on there, and you've got this maybe divided up in 2 rooms. Now, the CamConnect itself, as I noted, can support up to 8 profiles on there. But with the profile settings on there, you can have it set up for this room here and these 4 cameras, or set up for profile 3 for this room and these 4 cameras. But just to be clear, if you have 2 rooms going simultaneously, you do need to have 2 CamConnects going on there. If it's only 1 room being used at a time, then 1 CamConnect will work perfectly fine for the setup on there. But the importance of having it is that you are able to set this up and have multiple profiles, so it remembers the configuration for each individual room. And Rick, if I'm correct, that will also remember all the configurations for the zone mode, etc., in that setup, correct? Excellent. Perfect. Excellent. Okay. Hey guys, that's the entirety of the CamConnect. We want to just highlight some of the new feature sets and some of the ease of setup on there. If you guys are looking to do a demo and do a live demo with Rick and get a little bit more in tune with it, please feel free to book some time with Rick on his Calendly account, or set up a time with your zone managers that we have in your region. We'd love to do a live demo. If you guys want to test out the products, please do so as well. We can work with our zone managers to get that set up. But I thank you guys all for the time. I appreciate it. I'm not sure, Helen, if there's any questions in the chat or anything like that.
Thank you, Chester. Let's give folks some time to put any questions they have in either the chat or the Q&A section at the bottom of their screens. And we'll answer any questions that anyone may have. Let's just give folks a minute or 2 before we conclude for today.
I think the one thing that I'd like to add, if there's any questions coming in, is that we do have an extensive command set so that you can enable or disable voice tracking from a Crestron, Extron, or QSys panel, or any other panel, which I think is very helpful depending on what the end user requirements are. Do they want to have meeting equity, or does the CFO one absolute control over the entire meeting. So being able to have integration, control integration, I think is very helpful.
Okay, very good. I don't see any questions at this time. Thank you all for joining our webinar today. Please continue to take a look at our website for future webinars. Thank you, Rick and Chester, very much for presenting. Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks a lot. Everyone have a great day. Happy July 4th. Take care.